Good morning. It's Kim Collins with the Nonprofit Program Office, and I'm going to be bringing you today a few items to discuss with you. Actually, I have 4 different topic areas that I would like to discuss. One is the 5 characteristics of great executive directors. This is my own list after compiling it after nearly, I was figuring out the other day, like 25 years in nonprofits with executive directors. So that's kind of why I wanted to do that. 2019 annual report to Congress, some information. We have put some out there already. It is starting the concurrence process. We are still waiting for one audit, however, so, but it is headed the right direction. The other thing we've done is the operation oversight questions. I know as you fill those out when we're on site, you probably wonder, do they ever do anything with this? Well, we actually do, but we've never shared that. So we did a compilation this year from 17 to 19, and we're going to give you some of the things that were the top things that you wanted to see the Office of Research and Development do, as well as the Nonprofit Program Office. And last, we're going to just look at the research study compilation that we just recently put together for Dr. Clothes' team. First, we're going to talk about the 5 characteristics of great executive directors. The first one is integrity. This is absolutely vital. The tone at the top makes an incredible difference in business, in families, in many organizations or structures. And in these executive directors, we need a high level of integrity because your staff is watching you, the VA individuals, the VA personnel that work close with you are watching you. So just make sure your integrity is always in check and you have a strong moral compass and you know right from wrong, or you would ask. Sometimes we just make mistakes. That's not an integrity issue. It's an integrity issue is if we decide not to disclose something or we falsify documents or things like that. But I think it's kind of interesting. It's kind of right and wrong. I'm an auditor, so I kind of live in the world where you have both sides. And so you have either right or wrong. There's really not a lot of gray area there. So we've kind of had to, kind of work through that because of being in compliance. That's how you look at things. But I want to just give you a couple things. One of the executive directors who in the past year has been terminated by her board, she was playing solitaire during her board meetings on her phone, playing games. And during trainings, in any meetings she had, like with the medical center director, well, that did not show a high level of integrity. It actually was devastating. I would not have believed an adult would have that problem, but I don't really play games on my phone or anything. So I just play games like board games, not anything on the phone. But she did. And I think we're going to see this even more so in the younger generation, but we have to make sure that we know there's a time and a place. The other thing I thought was very interesting, recently we've had a case by the criminal VA, Office of Inspector General, and that's a different division of the Office of Inspector General than the normal one. They have an administrative, a healthcare, and then they have the criminal. Anyway, he called me one day and I was driving, actually Paula was driving, and we were driving to another location to do an audit. And I think we almost both just kind of were in shock. He said, well, can you show me where in the policy it says that it's wrong to steal or to not steal? I'm like, we all know it's wrong. And I said to him, it's in the 10 Commandments. He said, well, I know that and you know that. We all know it's wrong, but did you ever say it was wrong? So make sure you put something in there that theft or anything will not be tolerated, because that did teach me a good lesson. Never thought of it before. The other thing in integrity too that I want you to always keep an open eye to is segregation of duties. It may be easier for you to write the checks, sign the checks, send the checks, but if there's ever a question, your integrity could come into question. So I would always follow the segregation of duties and make sure things were done correctly so that we could move forward and that somebody else was always looking at your work as well. I'm going to give you an example of that. The case that we had, the criminal IG, the same one, the executive director was taking withdrawals from the checking account through the credit card. Every week or so, she would go and take $1,000 out, cash. Then she was kind of doctoring the book so that it looked like all these $1,000 went to Fisher Scientific. The other thing she did is she raised her salary quite a bit without board approval. The board had actually told her no, and she did it anyway because she decided to bypass them. And the question there was, at that time, they did not have a CFO. So it was just the executive director and the office manager. So you really need to make sure that you're covered, that you have a financial person looking at your items. They don't have to be a CFO. They can be a financial manager. They can, come in as a volunteer, but just always have somebody else look at your work. When I was an executive director in Kansas City, I never signed my own travel checks. I would always make sure somebody else did that because I didn't want to, even though I knew it was correct and right, I didn't want any questions about my integrity or that I signed my own check. The second one is compassion, and you may wonder why. Well, nonprofits tend to really focus on their mission, and the mission is the reason they exist. Now, in the VA nonprofits, it's a little bit different because these nonprofits were created by Congress, and we do have so many VA board members on there as well. But make sure you have empathy for the veterans. Always put them first in every decision you make. And then that you also have empathy and compassion for your staff and the VA staff around you. The third is believe in your mission. My philosophy is always, if you can't believe in your mission and you're not driven by that mission every day, then it might be time to look somewhere else because I always need to be in that mission. And we have the best mission in the country, probably in the world, to help take care of the veterans. Those who have served, those who have sacrificed, and many are still sacrificing today by being research studies subjects so that we can learn more to help other veterans down the road. So really always have compassion. The third one is business acumen. Basically, make sure you can understand a financial statement. Sometimes we've had different, like we have some MBAs, we have some different degrees and different skill sets as executive directors, and you can see pros and cons in all of them. But make sure you can understand a financial statement. Make sure you can read it, understand it, and explain it. If you can't, ask for help. I know Hawk and Rick are happy to help you learn how to do that, or even Alan would do that, take time and show you how to do that, because it's just really important that you know those answers. When I go in, one of my key questions usually is, what is your revenue up to this point for this year? And I would say almost 50% say they don't know. Well, as the executive director, you need to know where your money is. You need to know what is your revenue up to that point, and how much do you have in the administrative fund today, and how much do you have that is in excess that you can use later if you need it. So be really careful and know that. And just one of the key stories I want to bring this home to you is one day we were called in. This was in our very beginning, so we were brand new, all of us. And it was up somewhere really cold. I just remember that. And we went in and they said, so the medical center director met with us at 7 in the morning because it was the only time on his calendar that was open. So we were there and ready to go. He basically called a board meeting at noon that day. And we were invited to go to the board meeting and explain why we were there and the concerns that we had. So basically, during the board meeting, they gave out financial statements. Of course, I'm looking at the financial statement. And later in the day, after the meeting, I was balancing the financial statement with the checkbooks and the, securities and any investments, and making sure those all married up. Every time this was a brand new executive director at that time. I think she was acting executive director. And she has done a stellar job from that time forward because she was just brand new. Every time I'd say, well, is there money for that? And she'd say, it's in the budget. Well, we all know budgets kind of change a little bit. You may have a budget and you may not have put in enough for the air conditioning that went bad. So it's $1,000 extra this month. Well, that means you still have a budget, but that doesn't mean you don't have the money for some of the things you would normally do if you're on the true budget. So we want to make sure you know how to do that. So I said, okay. So then I'm looking at the amount. It's like $850 something thousand. So I said, okay. So basically, I looked at that and I said, well, all I'm seeing in the checkbook is 300. Do you have another account? She said, no. And literally, she reached into the drawer on her right-hand side of her desk and opened this thing. She said, well, maybe it's in these negative accounts. She literally had a stack of negative accounts, and she said, we don't show these to the board because they're not good news. So make sure that you're sharing everything with your board, even if it is bad news, because they are responsible for the financial basically the continuation of the business and so forth. But anyway, since that time, we did, and there was a reason. So they really didn't have the money that was in the budget. But just remember, always know that. So know your revenue and your administrative expenses. You don't have to know, like if it's the 20th of the month, you don't have to know that month included, but you should know the previous month by that point. The fourth one is vision and ambition. Unfortunately, rarely do we ever have the opportunity to put an executive director and an incoming executive director together before they retire, before they leave. Occasionally, we've been able to do that in some of the larger ones, and that has worked incredibly well. But many of the smaller ones and mid-sized ones do not have the money, or they don't have the time to do it once they move forward. So there's a huge difference there. So make sure that you're self-motivated. You're not going to have somebody in your office every day telling you to do A, B, and C. You guys are professionals. You know what to do. Just make sure that you're out there and you're doing everything you can for your organization. When I say self-motivated, don't just sit in your office and wait for business to come to you. Basically, go out, look at the researchers, be in the halls once COVID's gone, of course. I know we can't do a lot of this while COVID's in process. But really kind of know the players, know your PIs, ask them what you can do for them. How can you help them be more successful in research? We had the opportunity, and this is a great researcher today even, that he was able to bring his, he wanted to do a study, but he had no money. So basically, I completed all his paperwork for the IRB, which, you know, at that time was less, probably half of what it is today, but it was still a lot. And so that worked out very well for him, and he was able then to have a nurse work for him, but that way he didn't have a lot of expenses at the beginning. But find out what can you do in your organization to help the PIs. Really listen to them. And the fifth one is a team mentality. No one is an island. The nonprofit program office is not successful because of me. It's successful because of the team. Everyone brings different skill sets. They bring different knowledge bases, but you need all that together to be successful. So remember, always look out for your team. And if you hear yourself saying, I, mine, kind of take a step back and try to rework in there, we, the team, and I, because that is hugely important, because it's not a one-person operation. It takes more than that. And even at the top, the leader gets the blame and the praise, but you need to make sure that you take the responsibility. As Harry Truman said, the buck stops here. However, you need to praise and bring your team in there as well. Let them know you appreciate what they do. So the other thing is for the VA, make sure you're working to have a good working relationship with the board members that are veterans, that are VA employees, especially your ACOS for research. And that may be difficult because you're looking at two different items sometimes. You might think they just want money out of you. They look at you like, you know, an ATM pretty much, but at the same time, make sure you're able to work together and don't create a situation where you're headbutting all the time, because you end up taking a lot of energy and using it to that and not really helping your team as well and your organization. Now we're going to talk about the annual report to Congress. Of course, as we know, we have not been traveling, so we've had a little more time to look at everything, which has been nice. Usually we kind of get a lot done and then we're out on the road again. So I want to give you kind of some updates on the annual report to Congress, some pros and some cons here. Well, the exciting news is we had the highest dollar revenues that we've ever had, 285 million, which is very exciting. That was up from 4% for last year. So that's an incredible increase, and we're very thankful to the principal investigators who work hard to help bring that in. Okay, so 81 VA nonprofits reported. In total, the revenue was 285 million. This is the second year in a row that the NPCs have achieved record high revenues. Over the past 10 years, after paying all their own administrative expenses, we take those out, the NPCs have administered 2.4 billion of VA research funds brought in by VA researchers. And we want to make sure that one of the things we make sure is make sure you give your PIs credit, because really we don't exist without principal investigators and without the scientists. The estimated net contribution to VA is approximately $60 million annually. This amount is figured as their administrative expenses, 39 million, plus amounts expended for VA research and education from earnings, 20 million, and from accumulated equity. The foregoing calculation omits the IPA assignment agreements, because even though those are added into the revenue, we don't really consider those as revenue. They are in there for everything else, but we took those out because that would skew the numbers quite a bit. Okay, the NPCs employed 2,500 people, supported 2,000 PIs, and administered 3,300 research projects. Government funding, and that's primarily NIH and DoD, was 189 million, 66%, up from the total by 4% from the previous year. NIH was 105, so it was up by 50%. If you remember, DoD kept making a bigger increase last year. DoD was 45 million, down by 33% from the prior year. Various state programs increased by 27% from 2018 to 11 million. So, and this is how the NPCs do report all the revenues from governmental sources. The non-governmental funding, which would be CRADAs and other, like, I'm thinking of like organizations like the Alzheimer's Association and the Red Cross, American Heart Association, those actually brought in 91 million, which is 32% of total revenues. And that was up by 3% from the previous year. The other 5 million was from interest on earnings. We know interest is still extremely low, and other miscellaneous sources. 39 of the NPCs recorded revenues from non-governmental sources, and that's CRADAs, and 312 distinct sources for non-government revenues over 25,000, which that's pretty amazing. We were also very surprised this year when there were so many from the community, like the American Red Cross and Alzheimer's Association, those individuals. The NPC submitted 561 CRADAs for approval and actually started 400 CRADAs. That's about the same as last year. San Diego NPCs started the most new CRADAs, and that was 19 for 2019. 10 NPCs posted revenue increases of more than $1 million. The largest single increase was recorded at Palo Alto, and they increased by 2.9 million. 43 locations had revenue increases, while 38 locations had lesser revenues than in the prior year. Included in the revenue is the $24 million from VA for IPA assignment agreements. 37 NPCs received IPA reimbursements. Of those, 8 posted reimbursements of more than $1 million. The largest amount for any one NPC was $3.7 million, and that was paid to Palo Alto nonprofit. Expenses were about $276 million, so that's always nice when your expenses are less than your revenue. So, and they're the normal thing. We didn't see anything strange there. It's mostly for administrative overhead was is still very low. It's right at 16% across the country when we calculate the total revenue. I know many of you received more than that, and then many received less. So, but it's calculated just using the raw data we have. This isn't your indirect cost rate. We also paid about $4.4 million in travel expenses, and that was mostly for researchers. Okay, the NPCs are vital to VA research. They manage $312 million in assets, and book net worth across the country was $214 million before consideration of the research revenues that would be used for those. So that was very exciting. There were 7 internal control material weaknesses in 6 NPCs. This is a new one. There were 2 repeat material weaknesses reported. Usually we have not since we started had a repeat material weakness, so that was a little discouraging. But we make sure we follow up to ensure that they're done, they're effectively remedied, and we will be making sure of that this year as well. With 2 exceptions, everyone did their audits and it was all in. Now, we had 33 individuals, 33 NPCs came in early, way early. We were so thankful for that. And the ones that came in early basically had very few errors. If they did have errors, we didn't count them against them because of, they came in early. We had time to rectify them and go through them. Now, the other ones, there were many errors. And it wasn't like half of the other group had errors. What happened is we had the same ones. We have to keep sending things back to them because when we asked for them to correct them, they did not correct them correctly. So that's counted in there as well. We are actually still awaiting 1 audit. We do have all the other audits in. We have not received that audit to date. This year we had more than ever that didn't schedule their audits till late or had issues because of COVID. So one thing we would really encourage is everyone to try to bring as much online as possible so that if COVID does come back or we have another pandemic or anything, we're able to still do our work and the auditors can still do their work. Because the June 1 date is created by Congress. We don't have the power to move or change that date at all. So, we're starting the concurrence process, and we also had many reports were submitted more than a month after the June 1st due date. And that was a rarity. We usually have not had that. So we need to just, we're trying to encourage everyone to schedule now, to schedule as soon as possible, and to do what they need to do so they can have their audit and all the information into us by June 1st. But a special thank you to those who came in early and who quickly fixed their problems correctly and sent them back. Okay, as we go out in the field, we have you fill out an internal controls questionnaire. And then we also have you, and that's just to check the boxes. And then we also have you complete an operations oversight questionnaire, and that is more of a narrative. And so you're giving us different ideas. So we basically took these and were able to break them down. So, and the exciting thing is several things in ORD have been done since this time. So that even means, that even we didn't share this with them yet, but they, they already had been working on things. But the categories for ORD are the industry sponsors, CRADA, and interagency agreements. I know we're still waiting for Congress on the interagency agreements. I keep thinking it'll be in one of the CARES Acts that comes through, or the COVID funding, but it hasn't come through yet. So hopefully it will soon. I know Rick's working hard on that in Hawk. The second is public relations and promoting research. The third is administering research and educational opportunities for research. Well, I think they're doing a great job with the program and their access to clinical trials, and Dr. Wong and NAVRAF and different ones are just doing super. So we're really thrilled with that. We also have many COVID studies that are out there right now, and we're using the NPCs as well as other, some of them go through ORD as well, go through the research office. Now on the NPPO, that's one of the other questions we looked at is what can the NPPO do to help the NPC be more effective and successful? And our categories were training, oversight, and then just suggestions. One thing that was brought to training is they would like us to do lower level training for staff so that all the staff could be involved in training. And so that's something we might want to think about as we proceed, especially if we're still not traveling. We will be able to go forth and do as much as we can during that time. The other was on oversight, to make sure that everyone knows, and I don't think we've done a good job of this, so I totally take responsibility for this. To let you know what other NPCs are doing, so that without naming them, we do not have a public website for that. We do not publish the oversight, the NPP triennial reviews or for cause reviews. They're not published at all, and so we would not ever do that unless something changed in that dynamic, but we're not anticipating that. But the big thing is that to make sure you know what's out there and what people are finding. So we will work better with Rick and Hawk and make sure that they know what issues that we're seeing on a regular basis once we ever get back out in the field, and then how we can work together to help the other NPCs to do that. Then the other was just some great suggestions on different things. So so we appreciate all that, and we are looking at it. Okay. On Dr. Clote's project, first we want to thank everyone for responding to ORD's request for the current project status information. It was, it kind of came, we were not anticipating this. Dr. Clote asked us if we could help her, and we said yes. So there's a couple things here. We are still waiting for 3. Right now we have 96%. We have 76 of the 79 NPCs have reported. So 96%, but we're not at 100%. I know Alan sent out more information today on that, so hopefully we'll have those last 3 by the end of this week. I would just like to say a couple things is please respond. When you have the opportunity and we send stuff out, I try really hard not to send a lot out. Now I'm sending more out today than ever before because I'm trying to share the VA information as well. But if you can't meet a deadline, please let us know and we're willing to work with you. We had a couple of the large ones immediately ask for an additional week, and we gave it to them without any problem. But we made a lot of phone calls to people trying to make sure we got these numbers in. And this is really to help you. So, because Dr. Clote's trying to figure out how to get, and Rachel Ramoni, Dr. Ramoni, they're trying to work and get as many restarted as they can of those that have been closed out. So basically, they're reviewing the projects carefully and trying to determine where help is needed to open them back up, where it is warranted and possible. The results of surveying was nearly 1,800 projects, and it was encouraging to us because we were concerned that there were more, were more out there that had been closed down, and there wasn't. So that was very good. Basically, a third of all the MPC projects were not halted, and another third were only partially impacted. So that was good news. We also found that 46% are continuing now, and 44% are planned to restart. Now, there is 5% that will not restart, and we're not sure why, but that could easily be a number of things, whether they've already received their enrollment numbers, so they don't really need to start, or if the timing just ended and they had to go ahead and start. It says, I think it could have been a lot worse for us, and so that was really good. We do appreciate your consideration and doing this on short notice. Like I said, we're still gathering 3 in, but we want to make sure we can get our studies began as soon as possible, because that's kind of vital to the MPC operations. The other thing that we're very happy with are the number of MPCs that applied for and received the PPP money, the Payroll Protection Plan. Basically, that was kind of a loan from the SBA, but they're not going to have to pay it back. It's to help with the COVID relief. There are a few out there that did not. I'm asking you to please watch for the next package, because something's in Congress right now. I don't know if it'll have any more PPP money in it, if they had any left. There is a short turnaround window normally if there is, but some of you who didn't apply before could apply now. So talk to your board members, see if that's going to work for you and how you want to do that. If you have any questions, you can contact Alan Crabiel, our auditor, or Rick and Hawk. They'll be happy to help you as well. But I know they're going to be kind of busy getting ready for this meeting. So, but anyway, call us. I want to just take a minute and introduce you to the NPPO team. And I just want to remind you to contact us anytime, because sometimes normally we've had the question before and we can answer it pretty quickly for you. And we really, we don't want you to waste a lot of time looking in a million places before you do that. Read the handbook. That's vital first, though. Make sure it's not real clear in there. And then, shoot us an email. All of our emails are just our name at va.gov. So Paula Floyd is paula.floyd@va.gov. And I'm kimberly.collins@va.gov. And Alan's alan.crabiel@va.gov. But you have our phone numbers there. We also have a website. I appreciate the staff. They've worked hard during this time, creating many things, doing trainings and helping the MPCs, just kind of walking through them with different steps. We've called to check to make sure everyone's okay. We have had 2 executive directors down with COVID. So 2 out of the 80, that's not too bad. So we're thankful for that. Look forward to being back in the field, hopefully the first of the year, and begin our work again. Thanks and have a great day.